Hey everyone, my name is Dave. This video is an introduction to the Loch 28 drift, which is the Weehawk, Loch 28, and the Conestoga. This video is intended to be used in conjunction with the handout, and I'll provide just a brief overview of what you can expect to see on the dive. Speaking of which, the video is filmed in 360 degrees, so feel free to throw on the little headset or just to play around with the mouse and you'll be able to get a good idea of what the entire dive looks like. So as a broad orientation to the dive site, you can see Gallup Canal Road over on the west-hand side of the map. That'll be where we're coming in off of Highway 2 and heading down to the parking lots where we'll gear up, get ready to head down to get our dive briefing, and then go down to the entry point at A. We'll then head over to the Weehawk. From the Weehawk, we'll follow the blue lines out through Loch 28, spill out into the St. Lawrence, keep heading northeast up towards the Conestoga, and then we'll get out of the water at B, change out tanks, walk down to C, and then do the final leg and return back to the start point. So we'll cross over following the orange lines over towards those cottages and get out either at D or E depending on air consumption. So we'll get into the water just at A, then head straight over to the Weehawk. This is circa 1950s ferry that used to bring people and vehicles across the St. Lawrence. Now in part 2, we're heading down along Loch 28. The current's quite strong. If we ever feel that it's pushing against us, it's likely because we're in a back eddy, so we're too close to either the north or the south wall. We'll just shift back into the center. We'll notice a significant change, a slowdown in the current once we get to that widening, so where the canal widens by about double, almost 3 times its width. As we continue to head northeast, it'll gradually start to pick up again. And you notice in the video where the grass starts to get much longer and starts to bend down, and start to get significantly wavy. We'll notice as we start to get more and more shallow, we spill out into the St. Lawrence down to about 25 feet. We'll just start heading northeast and we'll roll with the current for between 3 and 5 minutes, depending 18 and 20 feet. So we're now up to the 4th part of the dive. So we've hit the Conestoga. We're going to veer right as we're looking at it, so along the port side of the ship. And we'll take a look between the hull and the seabed where there tends to be a lot of wildlife hanging out. Then let the current take us all the way down to the stern, take a look at the rudder and the propellers. We'll head up over top of the stern, pop up into the hull, and return down the hull. First thing we'll see is the smokestack, which actually the top of it sticks up out of the water. We'll then continue forward over through the boilers where the current actually picks up quite significantly. If you look at the stills here from between the time this video was recorded and then the subsequent recording roughly a month later, which was this past weekend, the visibility has opened up a lot, so we can now actually see between both sides of the hull. We'll continue moving towards the bow where we get to the massive chains that were used for the anchor. We'll pop over top of the northwest edge of the bow and exit at B. And this is the 5th and final part of the dive. We'll change out tanks, walk from B to C, get back in the water and follow the orange lines here across the canal over towards the cottages. We'll then head, once we hit the cottages, we'll head southwest, just with the wall directly on our right-hand side. The current's quite light, if any at all. And we'll head down towards the broken bridges. So at D, that's actually the 3rd broken pillar. You can see one pillar by that final cottage, a second pillar off on its own, and then the third pillar. So we'll get out at D if we're starting to run low on air, or if we've still got enough, we'll head into this northern basin here and then get out at E. So there tends to be very little current and a lot of wildlife hanging out in that northern basin. So there's lots to see, there's no rush, and there's very little current. It's actually quite enjoyable.